Welcome to Paperweights, the podcast where two self-proclaimed gym rats and shooting enthusiasts delve into the world of literature with a sprinkle of humor. Although their biceps could crush a walnut, don't let that intimidate you. They also have a nerdy side. Mike and Brandon have a voracious appetite for reading, particularly in the fantasy genre, and they want to share their passion with you. So grab your protein shake and your favorite novel and join us for a humorous and insightful journey into the world of books with Paperweights.
Welcome back to another episode of the Paperweights. I'm your host, Brandon.
And I am Mike.
Mike, you had fun yesterday.
Yesterday was a good day. I don't know if I've mentioned on the show. I think I have. I'm in a Scottish pipe and drum band, and we had a gig Saturday at a local casino. And then yesterday, being St. Patty's Day, we had 3 different gigs at two Irish bars, 1 English bar, which it felt weird playing St. Patty's Day at an English pub. Any history nerds will understand what I'm saying there. But it was a lot of fun. Earned my wings for the band. So they have this metal logo emblem that goes on your Glengarry, the hat.
Mm-hmm.
And you only get it after you perform with the band live. So I earned my wings yesterday. Thankfully, they don't do blood wings where they pound it into you because it's on a hat. So that would hurt. But it was a lot of fun. It was good. I have not played music live since 2006. So
Okay.
it was great to be back in front of a crowd playing. So we had a lot of fun yesterday.
Now, I never heard of the wings. I mean, I've heard of, hey, you got your wings, but I never understood it as part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you ever read any of the Patrick Rothfuss King Killer Chronicles.
No.
Or the main character quote. He's like a pipe and a lute player.
Okay.
But he goes around playing, and they give the bards or musicians, they'll get pipes, silver pipes, and so if you earn your silver pipes, then you basically can name any place and you'll be able to play.
Oh, nice.
So it's kind of a cool tie-in
Mm-hmm.
to the thing. So yeah, Saturday I took my wife and daughter and met my friends, and then my brother and his family came out too to the annual wearing of the green Irish St. Patty's Parade.
Nice.
Here in Baton Rouge, and it was huge. There were like 80 floats or something.
Yeah.
More than 80 floats, and for some reason towards the end they just kept, like, there were huge gaps between some of the floats, and we're like, is it over yet? And at one point, like, my friend and his wife walked back to the house,
Right.
and I was like yelling at him like, Alex, it's not over yet. But he couldn't hear me over everything, everybody, and he missed about another 15 to 20 floats that came in 2, maybe 4 at a time.
Oh, wow.
So that's what we did this weekend. It was pretty fun. So
yeah, you sent me a video. There was a Baton Rouge pipe band, which I found out recently, like about 2 months ago. Apparently there's quite a big Scottish pipe and drum band culture in South Louisiana, which I never saw the whole time I was there. But
wow.
Like one of a guy that came to instruct our band or our drum line was saying that there's probably 2 or 3 in Baton Rouge and another like 8 or 9 between like New Orleans and like that kind of western edge of Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, I would have loved to have seen that when I was there because I never saw it. It would have been great to see.
Yeah,
that.
I see these guys every wearing of the green parade. So
Mm-hmm.
all right, should we get into the book? We're part 2 of Goblet of Fire, chapter 16 through 25.
Let's dive in. I know I texted you yesterday saying that I'd kind of started watching, like going back and watching the first little bit of this movie. So
Yeah.
much is different. There's so like Winky is not even in the movie. Ludo Bagman's not in the movie. And that whole thing about the leprechaun gold, like that, like it's like basically they showed nothing of the whole Quidditch World Cup. It's so much was different. I was honestly disappointed. There was so much that was different.
Yeah. So chapter 16 has the title of the book, Goblet
Yeah.
of Fire. And this one's pretty just like the beginning of the book. Uh, pretty shallow on events almost. Like we've got the underclassmen that are like, oh, I'm gonna put my name in there. I'm gonna figure out how to get my
Right.
name in there. And everybody's like, uh-huh, yeah.
Sure you are, bud. Sure you are.
um and they do that in the movie too. Um, but there's several people that ended up growing beards and have to go to Madame Hooch.
Pomfrey.
Pomfrey.
Madam Hooch is the Quidditch person.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, they have to go to Madame Pomfrey to get de-bearded.
Yeah, the apparently the Weasley twins had according to Dumbledore, the Weasley twins had the best beard of all of them. Because
He would
they
be
were
a
like
good judge of beards, right?
exactly because they were all like, well, we'll be 17 like in a couple of months. We should be able to do this. And Hermione tried to tell him. She's like, look, Dumbledore's no slouch when it comes to magic. And they're like, we got this. They didn't have this.
So that begs the question that I can't really talk about that because we don't know who put Harry's name into the Goblet of Fire yet. So
We sure don't.
but
See, and that was another thing that was like to me like a giant difference between the movie and the book. In the beginning of the movie, we get a view of who the bad guy is at the very beginning of the movie. And in the book, we know there's a bad guy, but we don't know who it is. But so they kind of give a almost like a spoiler in the movie. So
yeah, it's funny. I was watching. There's a guy that's on the Netflix show Love on the Spectrum. Yeah, and I
yeah, I've
started.
heard about that. I hadn't watched it yet.
I really enjoyed it. Just some of the people are just really like lovable people, and it's kind of cute, funny parts. And so I started following some of them on Instagram, and one of them, James Jones, he posts a lot of videos where he's like, "Hey, I was thinking about this," and he goes on and it's like, "Here's my opinion of it." It's like, and what do you people think? Let me know in the comments here. And so, but one of the videos he posted that I watched this morning, he was talking about movies or trailers that give away twists. Like in the trailer will give away the twist, or the movie or the show gives away the twist way too early. It doesn't get a payoff.
Right.
And like he was talking about Thor Ragnarok. And this movie's already old enough and it's in the trailer, but
The movie's like 15 years old now, isn't
it? Like
at least 10.
Ragnarok?
Yeah, right. And Ragnarok's got to be at least 10 years old.
That's the third Thor movie.
Right.
It's about 7 years old. I think about 2017 or so.
Yeah, 2017. God, it feels like it was it feels like it was forever ago.
I am good. But the fact that the Hulk was in the movie.
Yeah.
Like it gave it away in the trailer. But it would have been awesome, his intro in the movie, if you didn't know it, and then boom, it's like, oh my God.
Like all of a sudden he's there. Like, yeah.
Yeah, just like they made Thor be surprised that Hulk was there. Like give the audience that same thing.
Yep.
And he was going on, he's like, well, why do movies and TV shows do this? It's crazy. Or there's a movie, did you ever watch The Pit and the Pendulum? It's like an old movie.
I know. So that's based off of a poem.
Yeah, I think it's O.
Yeah, it's an Edgar Allan Poe poem. I've read the poem, but I don't think I ever watched the movie.
I think I was Jules' age when I watched this movie. It was rated R, and there was like gore, nudity, like torture, like all this stuff in it.
All the good stuff that you need to be seeing at like 10, 11 years old.
I loved the movie though. It was
Right.
an amazing movie. And I didn't know this, but he pointed out that the back of that movie box actually spoils the twist in the movie.
Oh, that's
which
funny.
I can't remember what the twist in the movie is, but like I watched that movie so many times back in the day, but it's probably been 20 years or more since I've seen it. But yeah, so yeah, the fact that Goblet of Fire gives you a preview of who the bad guy is. It's good in this book, but it also makes me, since we know who the bad guy is because we read it and watched the movie, I start questioning like, why would they act like this here?
Right. Yeah,
Like,
because in a couple of chapters we get a little foreshadowing.
oh, absolutely.
And it's like it's one of those things where like having watched the movie, like having rewatched the movie now, and I this being my second or third read through of the book, I'm like, man, this would have been so much better if they had done it like this in the movie.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So question here. How many students do you think each school brought? Because like it seems like they may have brought all of them, but then if they brought all of them, they were there the entire school year. So did they bring all the teachers?
I don't think they brought all of them, and I'll only say that because the Durmstrom kids all still lived in the carriage, and the
that was
Beauxbatons lived in the carriage, and Durmstrom still lived on the boat. So I think they only brought the ones that they thought had the best chance of winning the Triwizard Tournament.
So you're forgetting so quickly the tents in the beginning of the book.
See, and I knew you were going to bring that up. I knew it, but I don't think they did. Because like from a logistics standpoint, because they all
could mobilize the school.
Well, they all ate in the Great Hall though.
Yes.
So they could. So that's why I really don't think they did, because they all still kind of came together in the Great Hall. They had, we'll get to it in a little bit, but they had the Yule Ball. There was all these instances where where all of the champions and all the schools were together. So I really think they only brought a few of the kids.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why. I knew you were going to bring that up about the tent, because I was thinking it.
I don't think they brought them all either, but it's kind of weird to have a whole school year go by where you don't have your headmaster in attendance. So maybe they were apparating back and forth.
Well, you can't apparate out of Hogwarts though.
But they're not in Hogwarts.
They're on the grounds.
They're on the outskirts, like the ships in the lake. I don't think that's within. I think it's within the gates of Hogwarts that you can't operate in and out of.
I don't know. I haven't read Hogwarts: A History.
You have not.
I had to add that pause because that's how Hermione would have said it. Hogwarts: A History.
Another thing here, Hagrid seems to be like pumping himself up. He's expecting somebody to show up. Who happens to be Madame Maxime.
He's got a thing for her.
He does. He's got a giant thing for her. Or maybe a half giant. As it may be. And he, at the same time, he's also like refusing to join Spew, citing that it's crazy. Like everybody here's like, the house elves love to work for free. They're happy. They don't want to be. They don't want to be free.
Right.
Hagrid
says his exact words were, "You'd be doing them a disservice." Like, Would we though?
Yeah, right. Chapter 17, or did you have anything? I never know how to approach this with you. Like, I'm like, let's move on. And then you'll be like, wait, hold
Well,
on.
the only thing that uh really and truly, like with this one, there's really nothing. Like this chapter is not really.
Well, there's some chapters in this section that have a whole
Oh,
lot of stuff.
so the only thing that I think is important in this chapter, I take that back, is at the end of the chapter, all the names are coming out of the goblet. The three champions from each school, Victor Crumb, Fleur Delacour, and Cedric Diggory, their names get called. And then because it wouldn't be Harry Potter without him being in the middle of the drama, Harry Potter's name comes out. That's it. That's it. And
Okay.
everybody's like, "Oh my god."
That's fair enough. I think I just took that for granted that everybody would have realized, that Harry Potter came out of, or his name came out of the Goblet of Fire.
I think it's kind of understood, but
Yeah. So now we get to the four champions, which we would have covered the fact that he got picked as a champion anyway.
it's true. It's true.
And Ludo Bagman. So, all right, because he's not in the movie, in the book, it's hard for me to like read him, and
Right.
it's we have a couple of red herrings. There's always like in a book, there's usually going, or a story, there's going to be red herrings when there's a mystery, right? So like he is a potential red herring here, like it's same as Mr. Crouch, and then the whole thing that there was a chapter named Bagman and Crouch,
Right. And then he's
they
not even
both
in
get
the
in. Yeah, they're not even in the movie. Well, one of them is. Mr. Crouch is in the movie, but not in the same role.
Right.
He doesn't appear as much in it. And we've got these two characters. We learn later, Winky is saying like, Bagman's a bad man.
Right. Yeah.
And like, what makes him so bad? I highlighted that and asked that later on. I was like, why? Why does she think he's bad? She never gives a reason.
Yeah.
As far as I saw. And then we got Mr. Crouch, who's just always, first of all, was always looking dead tired and worn out. And then he just kind of disappeared. He stopped showing up at work and all this stuff. But here in this chapter, Bagman is the only one that seems to be excited that Harry is the fourth champion. He's like, oh my God, there's a fourth champion.
Yep.
This is history. Like, this has never happened before.
The only thing that I can, and we'll bring this up again later. The only thing that I can think of as to why he's so excited, we know he's a bit of a gambler. So I think he's going to be placing some side bets here on the tournament. Just throwing that out there. A little lagniappe for you. Throwing that out there.
Snape is, so after the name, Harry's name comes out of the thing, they like usher all of the champions into a side room, and then the judges and the headmasters of the schools go in there too, and they're talking, and they're like, there's like a heated argument about like, oh my God, what are we going to do now? And it's like, well, it has to be four champions because it's bound by the magic of the goblet that's been around, and you can't not do it. Like,
the other headmasters are super mad.
Yeah, that they got two, and they're like, well, we need to go put two more names in for our schools and get them out. Which later on, not later on in this chapter, Moody actually suggests questioningly,
right,
that Potter's name was submitted using a fourth school, just to ensure that he was the only one that got picked from that category. So there's like, that's the way around the magic.
Right.
Is it's going to spit out one name for each school that's put
Mhm.
into it, and
Well,
they
and
didn't
then
think to put a limit of, oh, it's a tri-wizard tournament, so there can only be 3 categories.
well, he also suggests that they used a confundus charm or whatever to confuse the goblet. He's like, it'll take a very powerful wizard to confuse that goblet. And it's like, maybe you're onto something, Moody.
Maybe so. Snape is present in this debate as well,
Mhm.
and I thought I find Snape's presence to be kind of lacking in this book versus the first 3 books.
Mhm.
Um, I know, so one, I guess she didn't want to overplay
Right.
Snape being a I can't think of the term. I speak with my hands too. Um, uh, an adversary, I'm thinking a word that starts with the letter C. Um, but anyway, somebody opposite of
I was thinking antagonist, but
there you go. That'll be a good
didn't
one.
start with a C though.
No, it doesn't start with the C, but I'll use the word antagonist. He's do I look whited out? I kind
A
of
little
look
bit,
white.
yeah. You're kind of got a lot of, like you got a lot, whole bunch of light going on.
Let's see here, fix that. Sorry, people.
Yeah, so like like he was honestly like pretty chill about it. He was like, yeah, he's like, Harry's been figuring out, right? Potter's been figuring out ways around the rules since he got here. He thinks he finds himself above he's above the law, basically. And we get a little little background, not really any background, but just
There's that
the
little better.
a little bit better. They basically tell him, hey, they kind of run them down what they're going to be doing. And I did find it funny that after the tribe, after all the champions figure out, hey, this is what we're going to be doing, that as Crouch is leaving, he's left. I've left young Weatherby in charge.
Yeah, he still doesn't even
Still doesn't
remember
know his
his
name.
name. But yeah, I figured that Snape. Sorry, I got sidetracked by my image here.
Mhm.
I figure Snape has been a little absent from this book compared to the other 3, just to kind of not reuse the same antagonist because he's
Right.
not the primary antagonist. You
Yeah.
know, you got Voldemort who's trying to kill
Hmm.
Harry, and then especially with the 3rd book, even though it ended with Snape going, "I know Harry Potter did something, but I can't prove it. But
Right.
I'm bound. I'm determined to prove it."
Hmm.
Um, he still was proven to save Harry's life,
Yeah. Hmm.
and so for our main characters, and even Hermione pointed that out. It's like
Hmm.
Snape saved your life. Like they're having a conversation about Snape later on.
Yeah.
Like he's evil, and I think this might be in the next section, um, but they're like, but he saved your life, Harry.
Right.
He's like, yeah, that's true.
Hmm.
Okay, well, whatever. Um, but he's in there in the room with the champions talking, and I think it was one of the first times he was actually on screen, other than them mentioning potions class.
Yeah.
So in this book, we got a third of the way through, and finally we get Snape. Um, but yeah, Crouch is there too. He's not looking great. So the quote for him was, "Close up, Harry thought he looked ill. There were dark
Hmm.
shadows beneath his eyes, and a thin, papery look about his wrinkled skin that had not been there at the Quidditch World Cup." And we also find out that the champions are exempt from their end of year tests.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great deal.
Hmm.
Hey, put your name in here. Okay, cool. This is your year of schooling right here. You still have to go to classes, but you don't have to prove that you learned anything.
I would so not go to class. So they're like, you don't take your end of the year test. I'm like, bet I'm done. Like I'm not doing anything.
and then they can't do anything to you. They can't take you out of the tournament because
Right.
they're bound to compete because of the magic.
Magically binding contract. That would be, dude. There's no way I could do it. No way.
And then once they leave the thing, Harry goes out and realizes that everybody except for Hermione is absolutely livid
Yeah.
about Harry's name coming out of the Goblet of Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to the wand weighing ceremony in chapter 18. And that chapter starts off with Hermione believing Ron, or not Ron, Harry. And
Yeah.
then Ron and Harry refusing to talk to each other.
Yeah, we've got a rift in the throuple going on here.
Yeah,
Because Ron and Harry are, it's not looking so good for the buddies.
and I'll say the tension was high. Like,
What?
and it lasted 3 chapters,
Mm-hmm.
but it seemed like this went forever.
And that's like really interesting. Like she kind of set this up from the very beginning with Ron saying, "Why is everything I own rubbish?" But in the movie, I actually thought they set this up better because you could see like Ron every time, like even on the train, like Harry was like, "Hey Ron, no, don't worry about it. I'll buy this." He's like, "No, don't worry about it." Like before, he would just be like, "Okay, cool, appreciate it." But now he's like, eh. You could see in the movie this was building. On here, it almost feels like it comes out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, and this
And
is like huge.
in the movie, it seemed longer. Like
Yeah.
their fight seemed longer in the movie as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to touch on that, like, I think the impetus here is on Ron completely.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Harry, you know, it's almost a catch.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, you have all this money. A
Right.
rich person has all this money, right? A poor person will be like, well, why doesn't the rich person use their money for good?
Mm-hmm.
But when the rich person, like, not even condescendingly
Yeah.
uses their money on somebody that doesn't have as much, especially a friend, then that friend thinks it's rubbing it in their face, or it brings a light to themselves, like like I don't have as much as they
Mm-hmm.
do. It's almost like a pride or an ego thing, right?
Well, because I mean, think about it. Like, what are they? They're probably like what 15 by now because this is book 4, so they started at 11.
Yeah, they're 15.
They're probably 50. I mean, that's a tough age for dudes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot of things that you never really noticed before, as far as like the haves and the have-nots, and
and the
like
girls.
the girls, all that. Like this is tough. This is a tough time.
This is the puberty book.
This is the puberty book. This is exactly what it is. This is the puberty book.
But one of the things, I'll bring it back to jujitsu. People that have huge egos
Mm-hmm.
do not last in jujitsu, uh, especially like from the onset of learning it.
Right.
Because like, if you have an ego, being proven that you're not as skilled or knowledgeable as
Mm-hmm.
others on a day in, day out basis
Right.
is absolutely soul crushing.
Yeah.
So they typically don't last, or they learn, or they go, this isn't for me,
Right.
and they don't show up, and it
Mhm.
happens all the time. And so here, this is kind of like that. It's like Ron needs to put his ego aside and go, you know what? Look,
Mhm.
yes, I don't have all this, but Harry, he doesn't care that I don't have all this.
Right.
And it's not like he asked for all the riches. Like in this case, he didn't ask for all the riches,
Yeah.
which is one of the things Ron is actually jealous about. He's like, well, Harry didn't do anything. He just got it. And, Voldemort tried to kill him, and so he's
Mhm.
popular, and his parents left him all this money, and it's like, well, Ron, sit down and think.
Right.
He doesn't have any parents.
Mhm.
You have parents and family that love you.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that.
Yeah, he has nothing.
So, Ron, sit your ass down
Mhm. But again,
and
man,
put your
it's
ego aside.
but remember, dude, 15 is tough. 15 is tough.
Yeah, I mean, some people never learn that.
This is
So,
true. This is very true.
but 100%, the impetus of this fight is on Ron.
Yeah.
Ron is
Mhm.
is the fault. Um. Oh, another funny thing was Hedwig started to have an attitude too, because Sirius told Harry not to use Hedwig the next time to send
Mhm.
a letter to the desert or whatever.
Right.
So when
That way there's not a snowy owl going somewhere where there's no snow.
Harry was tying the note to the foot of another owl,
Mhm. She bit it.
and she like turned away and didn't look
Mhm.
at her. I was like, geez.
Yep. Yeah, I
Uh,
kind of felt bad because I mean, think about like Hedwig doesn't know any better. All she knows is here comes Harry. Like, no, I can't use you. And she's like, what? What do you mean? I'd kind of be butthurt too if I was Hedwig. So
I'm very distracted by the handle of your vacuum cleaner. It just peeks out of, oh yeah, there
like
you
that,
go. Yeah.
you'll notice
I bet that thing sucks.
it does. You'll notice the military standard tag there.
Oh, is that what that is? I thought that was a
Yeah.
power button.
No, it's actually what I so like that's how they mark your boxes. They put these little tags on there, like they look like that.
Okay.
It's one of my stickers though. So it's everywhere. You find them on stuff for years.
Yeah, I remember a thing you posted before where you on one of your gym equipment pieces.
Yeah, it never fails, dude.
Hagrid is he's still working with these Scroots. I think the Scroots are just like a book long joke.
Gotta be because they do nothing.
They do nothing, and he's always like bringing them up as like, oh,
Mhm.
I think this is the reason why. And
Yeah.
here in this chapter, he's like, maybe we should walk them because they
Mhm.
have a lot of pent up anger, but they're also not fleshy anymore. They have like this shiny armor
Yeah.
shells.
Like it just I never understood
Like,
these things at
I
all.
want to ask J.K. Rowling about them. Like, what's the deal with the Scroots?
But I do like how quickly he just acknowledged that Harry didn't do it. Like he didn't put his name, and he's like, "Well, you said you didn't. Dumbledore said you didn't, so I'm good with it." Like he just
Yeah.
instantly accepts it at face value.
Yes.
But the whole school thinks Harry's a twit and thinks he did it himself.
Yes,
Because
especially. I
we
mean,
have
the Slytherins were already against him,
like
and then the Ravenclaws were like,
Mhm.
"Oh, he did it to take the glory away from us."
Yeah, because we've got some support Cedric Diggory, the real Hogwarts champion badges that start showing up.
I misspoke. I said Ravenclaw. It was Hufflepuff.
Hufflepuff.
Rita Skeeter shows up at the wand weighing ceremony to interview Harry, at which point he gets upset by the quick quill pen
Mm-hmm.
that was becoming like sensational
Yeah.
as tears ran down his green eyes. And he's like,
He's
"What?"
like, I'm not crying. He's like, what is she's like, yeah, don't worry about don't worry about the thing. Don't worry about it. Just
don't
it's just
don't
there.
look over there.
Yeah.
Like just
Pay
just
pay no
stop.
attention to the man behind the curtain.
So then they move on to the actual wand weighing, and Ollivander is the expert that they bring in here,
Mhm.
and he looks over everybody's wands, and um, so Flora's wand. This is the only one I highlighted. So I remember there was he noted things on Crumb's and on Cedric's as well. But Floor's wand stood out to me because it had a hair of Avila,
Yeah, it
which
caught
was
him
her grandmother,
completely off guard. He was like, "It's a hair of, oh my god."
and she's just like, "Oh, it was my grandmother's hair."
Mhm. It also explains why all the boys in the school were like all about some Fleur Delacour because they're like, because she's part Vila. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you remember what was unique about Crumb's and Cedric's?
I don't really think there was anything with Cedric's. I know he looked at Crumbs and just said that the style wasn't what he would do. And then he knew Cedric's wand because he sold Cedric his wand, and
Yes,
he like raved about Harry's wand. He went on and on about Harry's wand.
of course he would.
Of course he would, because why not?
Yeah, he chose it.
Mm-hmm.
What was it about Crumbs? Well, yeah, I mean, other than what you said.
He really didn't say anything about it because I was just looking at it. He just said,
Oh, it was so Crumb's wand was created by Gregovich.
oh yeah, yeah,
So, so that Grigorovich, I think
mhm.
that's kind of important note for like the future of the books.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's made with hornbeam and dragon heartstring. So it's where am I in my notes? Oh, when uh, Harry was watching the wand ceremony, and I think he was looking at Cedric, and
Oh,
Cedric's wand is all nice and
nice and
pretty,
clean.
and so quote, he gathered a fistful of robe from his knee and tried to rub it clean surreptitiously.
Mm-hmm.
Several gold sparks shot out of the end of it. Fleur Delacour gave him a very patronizing look and he desisted. It's like, Harry, you shouldn't clean your wand in public.
You really shouldn't, especially not if you're going to shoot off in public. Again, he's 15, man. Come on. He hasn't learned this stuff yet.
He just sees another guy's wand is nice and shiny and wants to.
Wants to clean his up a little bit. The only other
um,
thing that I really see in this chapter is an owl showed up. Ron's like, "You got an owl," and like turns away, and it's a letter from Sirius saying, "Hey, we need to talk face to face. We're going to talk through the fire, and let me know."
yeah, try and figure that out. So he
Yep.
does end up he ends up getting with Hermione to try and figure out how to keep everybody out of that room
Mm-hmm.
so that they can have a talk. Another funny thing was when they were trying to take the photo of the champions with everybody. Madame Maxine kept throwing off the lighting or
Yep.
everything, so like the pictures took forever.
Yeah, and they kept trying to bring Harry to the front. He's like, "I'm good, thanks," and they're like, "No, up front."
Which brings us to the Hungarian horntail. That's hard to say. Chapter 19. We starts off with Rita's article that she wrote and released about Harry. And Harry was pissed off because it made him seem like he did it more and was gloating and all
Right.
this. So everybody was pissed off of him,
And that he's in love with Hermione Granger.
which he's not. Um, he dropped his pen, at which point a voice was like, "Hey, Harry," and he goes, "What?"
Right.
And turns around and it's Cho, and she's just like, "Hey, you dropped your pen." And he's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
He's like
No.
real on edge with everybody,
Yeah.
and rightfully so because everybody's being a dick to him.
Yeah.
Um, what else?
But everybody else, but like even like, you know, the article like mentioning Hermione, calling her stunningly pretty, like Pansy from Slytherin's like her stunningly pretty, and Harry's like getting ready to snap at her, and Hermione's like, just chill. It's fine. Just relax. Like I think he's really more on edge about the rift with him and Ron than anything else. Because that was like his first friend. So
but we also do learn that Hermione does actually look prettier.
yeah. Well, so we kind of glossed over it, but she got hit in the face with a charm and her teeth grew.
Yeah.
And she ran away to the hospital. And I don't remember in the movie, does she ever have braces?
I don't recall.
I don't think she does. And it's later on, it specifically mentions that she's had braces this entire time.
I don't think it mentions she's had them, and I didn't get the impression she's had them the entire time. I got the impression that her parents, being dentists, wanted her teeth to be taken care of by Muggle means of braces instead of magical.
She specifically says that my parents wanted me to carry on with my braces.
Okay.
Maybe I only know that because I literally just read that like an hour ago. Okay. I just finished reading.
maybe braces in that time frame, or Rowling's understanding, or maybe a retainer.
I don't know. I was one of the fortunate ones. I never had braces, so I don't know like the timing of it and stuff.
I had braces, but what I'm saying is maybe in England, braces might refer to a retainer,
maybe,
or something that's like removable or not as permanent.
I don't know.
Who knows?
So her teeth got fixed.
Yeah, I never pictured of braces.
Yeah.
But we don't learn that her teeth got fixed until a few chapters from now.
Right.
See, Hermione wants to meet with Ron and Hogsmeade, but Harry doesn't want to go.
Right.
But then reluctantly agrees at the starting line. Engines thumping and
bumping in time.
Yeah, there you
Green
go.
light flashes. Never mind.
Yeah. Thanks.
He says he'll go if he can use the invisibility cloak, and she's like, I really don't like this idea. He's like, it's the only way I'm going.
And so they go. At which point they run into Moody, who Harry finds out can see through the invisibility cloak.
Thanks to that magic eye that can see out the back of his head and through the invisibility cloak. Yeah.
Yeah. And Harry's like very super concerned. I don't think much else comes of that conversation, really. Except Moody did mention that he prefers to prepare his own food and drink for some reason. He states like being an Auror. I think the reason why he gave was being an Auror, he never knows who's going to try and kill him.
That's fair. I think really the only other thing that comes from that is that Hagrid's like, hey, I need you to meet me outside
bring the cloak outside the thing at this time. And so he does.
Which is another thing that's drastically different from the movie, because in the movie, it's Ron trying to relay the message through Hermione, because he still refuses to talk to Harry, to tell him to go see Hagrid. And like, so that's another thing that was like super different.
And so he does show up, and Hagrid's like, come here, I'm going to show you these dragons.
Right. But stay quiet, because I'm bringing a date with me.
Yeah. He goes, bong sewer.
That's great. That was, and it's literally how it's spelled out as bong sewer. I love it. I love it.
Like, did they put that in the movie?
I don't remember. I really don't remember. I didn't want to watch too much of the movie to like, just in case I got kind of caught up in it and watched further than I was reading.
Oh, you know what I missed over? Going back to, I don't think I mentioned it earlier in chapter 17. So, did you put your name into the Goblet of Fire, Harry? Dumbledore asked calmly.
Calmly. And in the movie, he's like yelling at him.
And in the movie, he's like, Harry Potter, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?
That's like the only time in the entire movie that they really get Dumbledore wrong. Because like he's the whole like everything else that goes on, he's always calm, relaxed. Like why are you all upset about like right there?
Don't
Like
know.
did you not trust your own age line? Like you laughed about it working on Fred and George. I think that was like one of those things they messed it up and they just kept it.
Yeah, possibly. Or it made it more, maybe they thought it was more cinematic. It's definitely more dramatic.
Definitely more dramatic, for sure.
And the last thing, the last important thing here is that Sirius. So with Sirius talks, two things. Harry actually runs into Karkaroff,
Yep.
like literally
Literally.
runs into him. Then later on, when he's talking with Sirius in the fire,
Mhm.
he tells him about all of that, the dragons running into Karkaroff. Sirius says Kark used to be a Death Eater.
Mhm.
He's like, he did? He goes, yeah, he got released. He goes, how did he get released?
Yep.
Well, he gave up all these names.
Yep. He dropped dimes.
And then Sirius also talks about Bertha Jorkins.
Mm-hmm.
And because she works at the ministry, she would have known about the Tri-Wizard tournament.
Yep.
And so that's his theory of why Voldemort took Bertha.
Yeah, because he said she wasn't too keen on the uptake, very easily tricked.
Right.
So
Which brings us to the first task, chapter 20. Harry tackles puberty. No.
kind of.
Harry tames his dragon. Well, Harry summons his wand. All those are good innuendos.
They are. They are.
And then here we go. He and Hermione are researching dragons, trying to figure out a method, which she's helping him here. But on the next task, she tells him, I can't help you. You're supposed to figure these tasks out by yourself.
Yeah,
Why?
that feels like a misstep by the author. She like did you not remember what you wrote like 2 chapters ago?
Right.
Like,
And so
do
they're
it
in the
yourself. Like, wait a second. You just literally spent days helping him research the first task, and now you're like,
you go do it yourself.
yeah.
So
One and done. One and
they're in
done.
the library looking at books and stuff, and Hermione says, "Let's try some simple spell books then." Some simple spell books then," said Harry. Oh no, Harry said that. Throwing aside men who love dragons too much, like
Written by Hagrid.
like this is a weird name of there's some weird things that you have written in this book, J.K. Rowling.
Mm-hmm.
This one, and then later on something about Albus Dumbledore's brother.
Oh yeah, and the whole thing about the goat.
And then so in this chapter now, Hermione and Moody are helping Harry devise a plan to defeat his dragon. And Moody says, you need to use something that you're to your strengths.
Right.
And he's like, well, I don't have. He's like, no, you're good at Quidditch. You should fly. He goes, oh yeah, okay. Let me use a summoning charm.
Yep.
I didn't realize summoning charms work that far away.
I don't think they work that far away any other time in the whole Hogwarts anything except for this instance.
It definitely doesn't work. I've been playing Hogwarts Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I picked it up after not playing for a year, and I only played for a few hours when I first got it a year ago. But I put quite a few hours into it this past week, and Yeah, there is definitely a
A
short
limit.
range on that Axio
Mm-hmm.
uh charm there. So, oh, by the way, I remember I mentioned the name of the shop, the Wizardware
Mm-hmm.
shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually it's in the game. Like their
Oh,
Hogsmeade
nice.
is in the game, so you've got all these different shops, J. Pippin's Potions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I forget the name of the Wizardware shop, but um, yeah, the three broomsticks is there.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's great world building for things like that or
Right.
theme parks.
Yeah,
Like I
next time I go to Universal, I'm gonna have to like double check like the name because they've got a bunch of shops and stuff with all the names and stuff. Like Honeydukes is there, Three Broomsticks, the Leaky Cauldron, all that stuff is there. So I'm sure that that shop is there too. I just don't remember looking for it.
we might be doing that after the cruise later this year.
Nice.
Um, wife isn't keen on doing Disney after a Disney cruise,
Yeah, that's
but
fair.
she's like, maybe Universal. We'll just see.
Love Universal. I do
And
like how in this chapter we also get Harry feeling like since he knows Madam or since he knows that the Dumstrums
Madame Maxine,
Madame Maxine, since he knows Madame
that's
Maxine knows
Beauxbatons.
Beauxbatons, I'll get it right eventually. Since Beauxbatons and Durmstrang both likely know that there's dragons, he makes it a point to tell Cedric.
Yes.
And he's like, hey, the first task is dragons. He's like, how do you know? He's like, don't worry about that. The first task is dragons. And the other students know too. Good luck. He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Moody, of course, sees the whole exchange. And he's like, oh, good on you.
I do love during the Harry's uh, match with his dragon. She gives a nice preview of like his pregame attitude and
Mm-hmm.
focus. Is so during it, he realized that he had left not only the ground behind but also his fear. Fear is the mind killer. Wait, wrong book.
Wrong book.
He was back where he belonged. This was just another Quidditch match. That was all. Just another Quidditch match, and that Horntail was just another ugly opposing team.
Mm-hmm.
So like anybody that competes, um, especially in like a one-on-one
Mm-hmm.
combat or contact sport,
Yep.
that fear is real, no matter how
Yeah.
many times you've been out there,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're a psychopath.
Yeah.
Um, that fear is real, regardless
Mm-hmm.
of how many times you go out and do it. And once you get out there and you start and you're like, oh yeah, you either don't change your attitude
Mm-hmm.
or your adrenaline stays up, you don't change your attitude and you just like blank and freak out,
Yep.
or you kind of go into this tunnel of, okay, yeah, this is cool, like,
Mm-hmm.
or third option is your nerves drop and you're okay, but then you just get your ass beat.
Right. Well, and it's kind of the same thing in powerlifting too. Like, especially like on a big third attempt, like if you're not able to shut off all those nerves and like be like, it's just me, the head judge, and the bar, and block everything else out, it can go sideways for you.
Yeah. I remember when I pulled 551 at a meet,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like, 524 was the heaviest I had done before then, and I only did it
Mm-hmm.
once. And I started off at 501, I think, and then
Mm-hmm.
went 524. And those moved so quick, and then I went 551.
Mm-hmm.
And that one just moved like it was tough, but it I didn't stall. I did
Right.
it. And I looked around, I was like, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, those are always the best ones.
So Harry does Axio his broomstick and then flies around and steals the egg. And at the end of the chapter, when he comes back in, Ron is there
and all is good.
And all is good. He's like, oh my God, now that I see that you
Mhm.
almost died and everybody else almost died, I'm sorry for being such a twit.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you would have put your name in the Goblet of Fire. And even if you did, why am I envious of it?
Right. I think the only other thing in that chapter, and it goes back to my theory about Bagman being a gambler, is he's like, hey, you're an underdog. If you need any help, I got you. He's like, nobody
Oh,
will have to
yeah.
know. It'd just be our little secret. It's like, what's your angle here, Bagman? What are you aiming at here, dude?
All right. So, chapter 21, the House Elf Liberation Front. Wow. I totally butchered my pauses in that. The House Elf Liberation Front.
Good job. Nice recovery.
Not the House Elf Liberation Front, but the House Elf Liberation
Mhm.
Front. The health. Harry starts to get because of beating that first task and everybody seeing how like dangerous it was,
Right.
and him winning by points,
Mm-hmm.
which somehow he still won with 40 points, even though Karkaroff gave him 4.
Because they kind of say that like the other judges, like they score everybody else except for their own house low. So
Okay.
because remember, like it's not
Somebody
just
give him a 10.
well, it's not just the headmasters and headmistresses that are judges. The Crouch and Luda. I think Luda's just an announcer. He's not a judge.
Yeah.
There's more judges.
I think Snape's a judge.
I don't remember.
Maybe.
Is he? I don't remember.
Oh well. So yeah, he starts to get a lot more support, and this is where Hermione tells Harry that he's supposed to work out the clue on his own.
Ludo Bagman and Mr. Crouch are both judges.
Okay, that makes sense because they're representatives of the Ministry of Magic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there's 5 judges.
Yeah. The three heads of
Headmasters.
houses, 3 heads of the schools, and then Crouch and Bagman.
Yep. So you can get a total of 50 points, and he got 40.
Yep.
We find out Dobby and Winky are now work at Hogwarts. And I totally did not write down why, other than knowing that Hermione is helping the House Elves, why this chapter's name is the House Elf Liberation Front. Did she name that?
She named it Spew, and then she said she changed it to the House Elf Liberation Front, but she doesn't really give us a reason why.
Okay.
She just said Spew didn't fit right, and this flows better. But what health is that? That's what it would break down to? Health
Yeah.
doesn't really flow.
Oh, I wanted to mention earlier, Colin, whenever the Potter Stinks buttons were out, and at first people thought they were Harry thought they were spew buttons.
Yeah.
Colin Creevy and his brother took some, and they were trying to enchant it to say something else, and then accidentally made some permanently stay on Potter Stinks.
Yeah, they made one say Potter really stinks or something like that.
Yeah. It's just like,
bless their heart.
Y'all need to leave Harry Potter alone.
They try. They trying.
Yeah. This is another one of those chapters that's light as far as I'm concerned. Dobby and Winky have been working there for a week. Winky is still kind of unsure, but Dobby's like trying to convince her, no, yeah, this is cool. Her clothing isn't as nice as Dobby's is. Apparently Dobby is buying himself some clothes.
Well, because Winky still feels like she still feels attached to her family, whereas Dobby's like, I keep trying to tell her, forget them, because Dumbledore said I can call him names and stuff if I want to, but I'm not going to. But he said I could.
Yeah.
And Winky's like, no, you're a bad elf.
And this is where Winky insists that Mr. Bagman is a bad man, but doesn't give any reason.
No, gives no reason. Just says
After,
I could tell you things about him that would make you not like him.
okay, so maybe that's a reflection of Crouch's opinion of Bagman.
I think so.
It has to be, because it goes back to what you were saying there. She's still supportive of the house that she belonged to. And so you would, if you live with people long enough, like, well, I could tell you some things about that person,
but she never,
on your parents or your siblings talking about them.
And she never leaves the house. So, and she's keeping her master's secrets or her family's secrets. She would have no reason to not talk about Ludo if it was something she knew of him directly, because it's not her family. But because it's, I could tell you things. Well, it had to be stuff she heard from Crouch.
I agree. That makes sense.
And the only other thing that's really going on now is Professor Trelawney is increasingly saying the terrible, horrible ways that Harry's going to die. Like, the longer the Triwizard Tournament goes on, the worse his death is.
I like that they mention, it's like, well, every prediction of his death can't be correct.
Yeah. But not all of them, because there's so many of them.
So that moves on to chapter 22, the unexpected task. They didn't know that there was going to be more than 3 tasks in this Triwizard Tournament.
No, they did not. The only other thing I will say about the chapter we just left out is whenever they finally get down to the kitchens, Ron's like, well, no wonder Fred and George always have so much stuff come from the kitchens. The house elves are like throwing food at them.
Like, oh yeah, she asked Fred and George how to get there, because they were like, yeah, we always go to the kitchen. It's like, what?
Yeah, like, what do you mean? So the unexpected task.
And so everybody is tasked with finding a dance partner for the Yule Ball. I think Harry even has to learn how to dance, maybe.
He keeps saying that he doesn't dance. He's like, I'm not going to do it. And McGonagall's like, yes, you are. He's like, no, but I'm really not. She's like, yes, you are. That's it. Like, that we're not talking about this anymore. You're doing it. And he's like, okay.
And so, of course, like, teenagers, everybody's talking about asking people, but nobody asks people. Well, the timid people don't ask people. Right. And then the other people, the go-getters, ask the people that the timid people wanted to ask before the timid people could ask the people they want to dance with. So pretty much nobody gets to go to this dance with who they want to, except for
Fred and George do.
Yeah, that's funny. It's like, oi, Angela.
Yeah, you
want to go to dance with me?
You're going to dance with me, right? Yeah, why not?
It's funny because he's like, hey, I'm going with Angelina. They're like, are you? Oi, Angelina. Yeah. We going to dance? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, we're going.
The only other thing that I thought was kind of funny there was how everybody was like super excited about the band that was coming, and Harry's like, I have no idea who that is. And they're like, well, it's from I want to make sure I say it right. I just saw it. It was the WWN, the Wizarding Wireless Network, their version of radio.
Oh.
Apparently somebody super popular from that.
I think this is a play on Twisted Sister.
I can see that.
It's the Weird Sisters. Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. So yeah, this chapter is all about puberty, kind of. So we end up with Ginny with Neville, Harry with Pavarni, Seamus with Lavender, Padma with Ron, and Hermione with Crumb. and then
we do start to feel a little tension building between from Jenny, because or at least we do later. I'll leave that to later, but we do start to feel some of that tension coming from Jenny though towards Harry.
And Ron and Hermione.
Ron is obsessed with who is Hermione going with.
Yeah, he's like,
he is
"Who is she
laser
going-"
focused.
And she's I like how she gets angry with him later on. It's like, well, maybe you should have the courage to ask me first before somebody else does. And of course, Cedric and Cho went together.
Mm-hmm.
And
Harry did finally ask her, and she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And in the movie, she actually, I think in the movie, she had said, "I wish you would have asked me first." I think that conversation happened, or I might be misremembering.
I think that's how it went too.
Yeah,
because it seemed like she wanted to, but she was like,
but I already
said somebody else already asked me.
Yeah.
Ron asked Fleur, but before he even got an answer, he ran away.
She laughed at him. That was her response. She laughed. Can you imagine being 15 years old and asking somebody to go to a dance or something, and they just look at you and start laughing? Yeah, I would have been mortified.
I think that's happened to me. Or some dude in fifth grade. Yeah, fifth grade. I wrote this chick a poem.
You were 15 in fifth grade? I mean, you are from South Louisiana, but
no, I was 10, 11,
12,
11,
13.
10 or 11. Yeah, one of those. I wrote this chick a poem, and it was a nice poem, I thought. And then she wrote me a poem back. And the only line I thought I still had it somewhere because I kept it for years.
Mm-hmm.
It was like brutal because there was one line that was like, "And when he's dead, we'll dine on champagne and wine."
Oh wow!
I was like, "What?"
It's like, this is a great line, but oh
my
ouch!
Oh. Yeah, chick's name was Stephanie.
Hurt that bad? It was marked in your memory, huh?
Yeah.
Understood.
But anyway, I'm still alive. So Stephanie, if you're listening, I'm sorry you have not dined on champagne and wine. Sorry.
I'm not sorry, because then we wouldn't be having this conversation. So
yeah, we wouldn't be having this great conversation. Chapter 23, we get to the Yule Ball. Yes. Or did you have something highly important from the unexpected task that I unexpectedly glossed over?
No, I mean, the only other thing that happened was right there at the end where Harry's like, hey, talking to Parvati, he's like, "Hey, do you want to go to the Yule Ball?" And she's like, "Yeah, cool." He's like, "Hey, do you have somebody that can go with Ron?" He's like, "I'll ask my sister if that's okay." He's like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So he basically, like, Harry is being a wingman and gets Ron a date.
Which has Padma even been mentioned before here?
Yet once because at the very beginning of the book, they mention it because they're twins and in different houses. And so whenever Colin was saying, "Hey, my brother's coming," and they were like, "Oh God, please, is his brother going to be in this house?" And like, well, maybe not, because of, Parvati and her sister, they're in different houses.
Yeah.
That's the only time they've been mentioned the whole time.
I think it's funny that this is literally, man, I hope she has a sister.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, do you have a sister? Like, I can't tell you how many times I heard somebody say that. Hey, does your wife have a sister? Nope. She's got a brother.
I can try to hook you up with him, I guess. I don't
know. He might not be too keen on it, but
$20 is $20. So
chapter 23, the Yule Ball. This is where we find out that Hermione had magical dental work done, and she actually does look prettier than usual now. So pretty that Harry didn't even really recognize her at first.
Neither did Ron. It said Ron looked straight at her and did not see her.
Yeah. And so like,
and apparently
her
it took her
front
3
teeth,
it took her 3 hours to get ready.
she did look stunning in the movie too.
3 hours to get ready. I think it took me 30 minutes to get ready for prom, both junior and senior year.
Sounds about right for me.
And that includes shower time.
We learned from Hermione talking to Ron thinks that Hermione is giving all the secrets away to Crumb. And she's like, no, he's just talking about this stuff. Like, he's not talking about the Triwizard Tournament.
Right.
He can't even, he's half
He
the
doesn't even
time
say her
he's been
name
trying to
on
my name. Yeah. Half the
Like,
time he's trying to learn how to say my name.
Yeah, she's teaching him her name at the ball. And he's like,
Hermione.
Hermione. And she's like, close enough.
Hermione.
Yeah.
And he tells her that he defeated the his dragon with a conjunctivitis charm.
Yeah.
Which conjunctivitis is pink eye.
Right. But that's what they find that out because they're reading a letter from Sirius. And he's like, yeah, I was going to suggest a conjunctivitis curse. And Hermione's like, that's what Crumb did, but your way was way better. Like, you would give the dragon pink eye? It's a dragon. What are y'all doing?
Who rubbed your pillow in his eyes?
Well, that's so like completely off topic, but do you remember in Wolverine, like the movie Wolverine, whenever
which one?
The
Origins or the one with the silver
Origins.
samurai?
Origins.
The crappy one?
Yeah, well, it means the Silver Samurai wasn't that bad. Wasn't much better either. But towards the end where the girl that I can't remember her name, but the girl he thought Sabretooth killed. She said,
Was that Lady Deathstrike?
No, it wasn't Lady Deathstrike. It was the girl he was living with at the beginning of the movie that could like tell people what to do by touching them.
Okay.
So she says, yeah, they injected me with hydrochlorothiazide. And it made me feel like it made me be almost dead. I looked at my wife and said, that is HCTZ, which is blood pressure medication. That's the full hydrochlorothiazide, HCTZ, is blood pressure medication. I know because I used to take it. I was like, they didn't inject, like, that's a pill. They didn't inject her with HCTZ. What are you talking about? It's about as good as giving a dragon pink eye.
Well, I mean, the things they did with Deadpool in that movie were horrendous too. So
they made up for it.
They did.
They made up for it.
Harry wakes up to Dobby standing over him on Christmas Day.
Yeah, like right here.
And he screams.
I would too if a bug-eyed elf was right here.
And everybody in the room wakes up. At which point they're like, well, we're all awake now and there's presents, so we might as well get presents.
Yeah, was it Seamus that was like, are you being attacked? He's like, no, house elf. Like, oh, okay, cool.
So everybody gives socks. So like Harry and Ron gave Dobby socks, and then Dobby gave Harry socks.
Well, because Dobby didn't understand that socks were matching. That was new. I don't know. I give up. I don't know why. I guess matching socks is a Ulster celebration on Zoom. I don't know what I did, but that did something. So everybody gets socks. The Dursleys did send a single tissue paper, like a single piece of Kleenex.
Oh, make the peace sign.
There it is. You Googled it, didn't you?
I did Google it. I was like, All right. So what was? Sorry, I get distracted.
I got distracted by balloons. To be fair, I did too. No, the Dursleys sent a single square of tissue paper as their Christmas present to Harry.
Yes.
We're just getting better and better.
At least they sent something.
It cost them more to postmark that. Even in, when did this book come out?
2004.
This text copyright 2000. Yeah, text copyright 2000.
Oh,
So
wow.
even in the year 2000, it cost them more to postmark that than it did to send the actual tissue paper.
Wow. So yeah,
There's horrible people.
Yeah, they're there. We find out Percy got promoted because
Yes,
Mr.
Weatherby got promoted.
Yes, Weatherby is promoted.
Mhm.
He shows up in place of Crouch as Crouch's representative.
He's
Because
very
Crouch is missing.
well. According to Weatherby, he's homesick, and the poor guy. He's he's not as young as he used to be. By God, Weatherby is there to hold the line. Crouch.
Yes. And then let's see. Oh yeah, and then here we get. Wow, I can't speak. Here we get Harry hearing a lot of extra conversations that he probably shouldn't have heard, but
Which he tends to hear.
we have Karkaroff and Snape talking, and so like he's just like walking, and as he's walking, he hears people talking, and then comes
Mhm.
around the corner, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" But he heard them say, Snape told Karkaroff to flee because
Mhm.
Karkaroff was like, "Oh, we're worried they're coming here." He's like, "Well, flee. I'll cover for you."
He says it's getting clearer. And to me, that was a very interesting line. You can't, he says, what does he say? He says, you can't deny you haven't noticed. It's getting clearer by the day. What's getting clearer?
The
What?
plan.
Maybe. I don't know. But what?
Somebody's coming.
Something is getting more and more clear.
Something wicked this way comes.
Ha, ha,
He also hears Hagrid talking with Maxime.
Yep.
And Hagrid suggests that Maxime is also a half giant like himself. And he, if I'm remembering correctly, this is where he was telling his story about his mom. Like,
Yeah.
so his mother was the giant, his dad was a human.
Mm-hmm.
It's like reminds me of that episode of Futurama with Snoo Snoo.
I didn't really watch a lot of Futurama.
It's
I'm
one of the
terrible.
famous ones, even if you didn't watch much Futurama. But anyway, it was like an Amazonian tribe of women
Okay.
who used men as slaves.
Mm.
But yeah, anyway.
I did find it interesting that in this chapter they made a point to point out a beetle.
A what?
A beetle. It says Harry didn't want to listen to the conversation with Hagrid and Madame Maxine. Instead, he tried to interest himself in a beetle crawling along a stone reindeer's back, but the beetle just wasn't interesting enough to block out Hagrid's next words. Why are you pointing out a beetle? Just throwing that out there.
Is that allude?
It's just like it's pointless unless it's alluding to something for later.
But is it?
Potentially.
Silence.
as that thought sinks in.
And Maxime is like, she makes Hagrid say what he was thinking. He's like,
She
"What do
pulls
you
it out and she's like,
think?"
"What are you getting at, Hagrid? What do you mean?"
It's like, that you're a half giant. And she's like, "What?"
Loses it.
And she just gets so cross with him and runs off.
But let's be honest, like you wouldn't get that upset about something like that unless it was true, and you just didn't want people to know. I'm
True.
big boned.
Okay.
Sure you are.
And then at the end of this chapter, Cedric pays Harry back by telling him to take a bath with the egg, and tells him that he can use the prefect bathroom.
And gives him the password. Like that's. I thought like on one hand, good on you, Cedric, for paying him back, but Harry told you like exactly. Say, hey, it's dragons. And Cedric's like, hey, take a bath with the egg. It's like, come on, dude.
Right.
If you really wanted to be level across the board, you could just said, hey, this is what it is.
But this whole time, and even through chapter 24 and 25, oh, that's weird. Okay, whatever. Um, Harry's like, yeah, I have it figured out.
Yeah.
I've got the egg figured out. And they're like, oh,
Mhm.
okay,
Cool. Good
sure.
job, bud.
And I think, doesn't Bagman offer to help him again
He
with
does.
the egg here?
Yep.
And he's like, no, I got it figured out.
Well, then he tells in the next chapter he tells Hagrid, don't worry, I've got it figured out, and that's when he starts to feel guilty. Like lying to everybody else about having it figured out, it was okay, but he lied to Hagrid, and he's like, oh, now I got to figure it out.
Yeah. So Rita Skeeter's scoop. This is where, so I'm if I understood correctly, Malfoy was the one that gave all the information.
Yeah, Malfoy, basically the Slytherins.
Gave all this half giant information to Rita,
Well,
and she wrote this.
well,
This
they gave all the information about him being a bad teacher and how they were all too afraid to say anything. They were one of them. One of them complained about being bit by a flobber worm, to which Harry
oh, it was
looked at him and
Crab.
said, "Yeah." Crab said, "I got bit by a flobber worm," and Harry's like, "Dude, they don't have teeth. What are you even talking about?"
You
And of
idiot.
course, all of the girls, as we get what happens is we get a new care of the magical creatures teacher who is teaching them about a unicorn. And all the girls are like, oh my God, a unicorn. It's amazing. And that's when Malfoy's like, oh, you don't know? Here you go. And gives Harry the paper, which lays this all out for him.
Yeah. And they used that class and the in the next, oh, I started reading the first chapter of the next section, so I think I'm getting confused now. But they used some of the classes as a distraction to discuss plans and stuff,
Mhm.
discuss things. Who was the substitute teacher for care of magical creatures?
Her name was Professor Grubbly Plank. And the only reason
Um,
why I know that is because I'm staring at the page where it has her name. Because she's never mentioned before, and she is never mentioned again.
and it's also on Boxing Day, whatever that means.
Boxing Day is actually the day like after Christmas where you get rid of your packaging.
Oh, okay.
One of those random tidbits information that I know. It's not the day after Christmas, but it's like a couple of days post Christmas where it's like you get rid of all of your packaging from Christmas.
Okay.
I've got random tidbits of information floating around in this melon of mine. That's one of them. Canada celebrates it too.
I have those as well. There's a I wouldn't say it's a poem, but it's like a line that's delivered in a Russian movie called Brother 2. That when I went to Russia when I was 15, 16,
Mhm.
I one day there was in that evening we were having a talent show where the Russians would get the American counterparts to learn something, to
Mhm.
perform or whatever that was of Russian connection, and then vice versa, the Americans got the Russians to. And so my host brother was like, "Oh, this would be cool. Like, out of all the Americans, like you you speak pretty good Russian.
Mhm.
So like it'd be cool if you recited this, but we want you to do it without the paper." And
Mm.
so I had like 3 hours to study over this and memorize it, and
Right.
I still know it to this day, 23 years later.
Nice.
I mean, I can't tell you what the translation is. I can I can recite the damn thing. So
There you go.
we do get Bagman looking strained again, just look very stressed. Most of the time, it feels as though our character. I think it feels as though our characters could like simply ask questions to reduce any kind of mystery
Right.
instead of
They
being
just
like,
don't.
"Oh, well, this is strange."
Mhm.
But I think while that may be the case, I think Rowling sets up a barrier to that by the relationship between the characters that are being observed.
Right. Well,
So,
it's
like
like
you
especially like
have,
the ministry people are like here. They're like way up here. And so everybody's like, "Oh, we can't talk to them. They're ministry."
yeah. So yeah, that's exactly what it
Yep.
is. Like even the teachers,
Yeah.
like it's harder to ask a teacher, "Hey, what's going on?" But this being the ministry,
Mhm.
it's still like if y'all just talked,
Mhm.
then you totally would understand. And this is where we find out Crouch has stopped coming to work.
Yep.
Um, we find out that Dumbledore also hates Rita Skeeter. And I love this line where Harry says, "Oh, is either Harry or Ron."
I think I think it was Harry said the skeeter
Y-
cow or
Yeah,
whatever.
you don't think anything that Skeeter Cal, sorry, Professor, he
Yeah.
added quickly looking at Dumbledore. "I have gone temporarily deaf and haven't got any idea what you said, Harry,"
Mhm.
said
Love it.
Dumbledore, twiddling his thumbs and staring at the ceiling.
Yeah, love it. See, and here's another one where just before that, where the big difference between Crumb in the movie and Crumb in the book. Because remember, Crumb in the movie is like a stud. He's
Hmm.
like, I mean, just a stud. And here, like the first time they go down to Hagrid's shack after the story comes out and they get it, he doesn't answer the door and they're on their way back, they see Crumb diving off of the ship into the lake. And it says, they passed the Durmstrang ship moored in the lake. They saw Victor Crumb emerge onto the deck, dressed in nothing but swimming trunks. He was very skinny, but
But
tougher than he
apparently a
looked.
lot tougher than he looked.
It's like, this is not the dude from the movie.
Look at the chat. Look at the chat, what I just sent you a screenshot of. This is from my notes.
Why is it not showing me? Oh,
I
because
don't know.
it's over here. Yeah, yep. Exactly. Like you said, opposite of the movie. Yep. It's so different, dude. That drives me bananas. Like, um, there's another series that I read from Cassandra Clare. Cassandra, it's the Mortal Instruments
Okay.
series. And the main guy, um, Jake in the book, is described as being this very handsome, fit, blonde, good looking dude. In the first movie, I was like, that is not him. It's like whoever whoever did the casting for this, that is not the guy. But then they did a series, and I was like, that's better. Like that's closer to what it was described. But the movie, I was like, that's not him. Not even close.
Yeah, that's one I hadn't. I was talking to somebody else about the Mortal Instruments the other day. I never read or watched any of that.
If you're gonna watch it, watch the series that's on Hulu. Don't watch the movie. The movie is okay. The series gets it way better.
Okay.
The books are pretty decent.
The last thing here in my attempt to condense down these chapters, which we have done a great job this time. We're just past an hour and 30 minutes.
We're doing fantastic, bud.
Yeah. So the last thing here is I mentioned it earlier, but he says, Dumbledore says, excellent point, said Professor Dumbledore. My own brother, Aberforth, was prosecuted for practicing inappropriate charms on a goat.
That's just so weird.
What?
What? Like seriously, what?
Yeah, I literally said, what? And this is like talking about like how relatives don't necessarily represent you.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. Didn't we?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, didn't we meet Aberforth in the movies later?
Later in the books too.
Okay.
But the only other thing that we kind of skip over is they go back to Hogsmeade. They run into Ludo Bagman again, he's talking to goblins this time, and he's like, "Oh, the goblins, they're looking for." And remember, the goblins control the money, and the goblins are visibly upset with Ludo. And he's like, "Oh no, they're looking for Barty. You know, they haven't seen Mr. Crouch. They're trying to talk about some stuff. It's got nothing to do with me." Again, I still think he's gambling. But then
I totally missed that.
And then Fred and George are like, "Hey, Mr. Bagman, can we buy you a drink?" He's like, "No, y'all go away." Because remember, Fred and George have been after him for a while too. So I still think he's gambling.
Did they collect from Bagman?
We don't know. We know he was supposed to pay him. Yeah. See, this is another thing that I think the movie did. Like, so they took out two characters, but there's so much different because Ludo brings so much to the book. He's like that constant. There's just something not quite right with him, but he's kind of a constant presence, and he's not in the movie at all.
No. The other thing, Ron poked fun at Hermione here. It's just when they were talking about the goblins, and
oh yeah,
worrying about poor ickle goblins now, are you? Ron asked Hermione, thinking of starting up SPUG or something, right. Society for the Protection of Ugly Goblins.
And her being the nerd that she is, nothing wrong with nerds. I'm one myself. She's like, well, no, like, don't you know anything about goblins? They don't need protecting. And Ron's like, that joke just went.
Or she just like shut it down.
Well, I think it probably goes. It's probably both, right? Like the joke probably went over her head, and she was probably just like shutting it down. Like, no, you're an idiot. You don't know anything about goblins.
No. All right, so the final chapter, the egg and the eye.
This chapter just felt drawn out for no reason.
It did.
Like it was so long. Like nothing happens in this whole chapter except for one thing.
He takes a bath. Well, there's two things.
Okay,
he takes a bath.
Two things.
He takes a bath, brings the egg in. Has the tub is huge. But,
yeah, it's Olympic-sized bathtub.
Yeah,
Olympic-sized swimming pool bathtub.
Imagine the water bill, though.
I know, right? Because it was empty.
Yeah,
completely empty.
It took a few seconds to fill.
Well, there's 100 taps too.
They all do something different.
It's true. That's fair. That's fair. One of them bounces water across the top, apparently.
Yeah. He gets spied on by Moaning Myrtle. And
That's illegal in all 50 states in the US.
yes.
But Moaning Myrtle died when she was a student, so I'm not saying it's okay.
Right.
So
I did like how Myrtle was insulted, where after he found out about the egg and it's like, oh, I'm supposed to breathe. I
right.
need to find out how to breathe. And how am I supposed to breathe? And she just gets upset.
Yeah.
It's
All
like,
all offended.
I can't breathe. Why are you asking me that? And then as he's leaving,
Mm-hmm.
he's walking down, he steps on the false step that Neville, they always make fun of Neville for missing.
Yep.
Drops the egg, drops the map. The egg goes tumbling down. Mr. Filch comes.
Soup sandwich.
Yeah. Filch comes, finds the egg, hears the noise in Moody's office, no, Snape's office.
Well, so he's looking at the map and sees Mr. Crouch in Snape's office, like moving around.
Harry does.
Harry does.
Yes.
And that's like between thinking about the egg, looking at the map, trying to figure that out. That's when he misses the step, and all hell breaks loose.
Yes. And so Filch comes, he hears noise in Snape's office, and Snape shows up, and he's like, what's going on? It's like, Peeves is out here again.
Right.
He stole this egg from this thing. And Filch is like, what are you doing down here, Professor? He's like, well, somebody broke into my office. And they're like, what? Was it Peeves? And then Moody shows up.
Yep.
Snape is staring exactly like he sees the parchment.
Yep.
So he picks it up.
Well, because Moody says you dropped this.
Oh yeah, and then Harry's like, wait, no, that's mine. He goes, oh wait,
he remembers the eye can see through the invisibility cloak.
Yeah, and he's like, oh wait, but it was already too late. Snape knew that it was there.
Yep.
But Snape was like staring into where Harry was.
Yeah, because he was like reaching for him. Because he recognized the parchment as being that map.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, Potter's here. And then Moody's like, I'll be sure to tell Dumbledore that your mind immediately went to Potter. But here was the other issue with this. Snape said my room or my office was sealed and nobody should have been able to get into it. Why did you seal it and then immediately think that Harry could break into your office? Like, you just got done saying that you sealed it and it would take a very strong wizard to get into it. And then you're like, bet it was Harry.
Harry's a very strong wizard.
Come on, dude. And then Moody rescues Harry. Harry tells him, hey, I saw Barty Crouch on the map. What sense does that make? And Moody's like, oh, you did? For real? Can I hang on to this? This is cool.
Yeah. And Moody's like, Harry, you would be a great author.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, I'm sure you would. But you just let the man go with your only tool.
Some people's children.
Yep.
And that's that section.
Yep, that's that section. So we have, let's see. The last section is from chapter 26 through 37. 11 chapters. 12. 12. Yep, 12 chapters.
12 chapters.
And we will cover that next week. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a fun conversation.
That
Looking
was
forward
fun.
to remembering the end of this book.
It's rough because like it feels like this whole book is like a slow burn to the end. Because it's like slowly build, slowly build. And from what I remember from this last section, the last section is like hard and heavy and fast. It's like everything happens all at once.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait till next week to see if I'm right.
We shall.
We shall. Well, sir, I think we have managed to do the impossible. And we went through this section in just under 2 hours.
Yeah, I'm looking at an hour and 41 minutes right now.
That's impressive for us. I think this is one of our shorter episodes to date, and we've done pretty well
For a
with it.
while, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Ever since we did Eye of the World.
Yeah, that's true. This is true. So
we've been reading bigger sections of chapters, so
that's fair. That is fair. It has been bigger sections, bigger chunks. We definitely broke Eye of the World into smaller segments.
Yes.
So
I mean, we did that in 10 episodes.
Yeah, that was a long time to get through one book, but it was a lot to go through. There's just so much detail in his books.
Yes.
So,
and I wasn't really feeling like breaking the Harry Potter books up into like.
Well, there's not enough
much to talk about, but it just takes like 15, 20 minutes to talk about a chapter.
Right.
Like to literally just talk about the events and comment on a few things. So
this is true. Well, sir, I'm going to hop off and I'm going to go finish doing dinner and dishes because
okay, sounds good.
That's what I do. Dinner
I'm gonna get some dinner as well.
Outstanding. Well, if you've stayed this long, first of all, thank you very much. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell, tell a friend, phone a friend. 50-50. What was the other one? The other lifeline, phone a friend, 50-50. Ask the audience.
Ask the audience, yes.
Do all those things and just tell everybody about the paperweights, and it costs nothing to be nice. So leave a comment, tell us if you like it, and make sure you're subscribing to the channel so you can catch all the other episodes and catch up on the past episodes.
Yes.
Am I missing anything?
No, I think that's it, Mike.
That's it. Okay, cool. Well, thank y'all for listening. We will catch up with y'all next week for the thrilling conclusion of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Absolutely.
All right, bud. We'll talk to you next week. Later, man.